everybody.
Welcome to the Macabre Podcast Universe. I'm Jordan.
I'm Micah.
And we exist to prove people wrong when they say
sequels are never better, than the originals.
And what are we covering today, Micah?
We are covering a little movie called Sudden Impact, directed by a one Clint Eastwood, and it is in the Dirty Harry series.
Fourth installment. Out of a total of 5
installments. Yes, absolutely. And we're here to provide you the best in podcasting entertainment that you can possibly comprehend or think up. Think about the best podcast you've ever listened to. Got it in your head? This one's better. So, it is such a... Doesn't it just feel so like July 21st?
Oh my gosh, like I can't even describe how much it does.
It is so July 21st. Couldn't be more July 21st today. Yeah. So happy July 21st to you.
Boys and girls.
It is totally that day. And it feels that way. Boy, it's hot outside, isn't it?
Oof.
It is a hot July summer day.
My ice cream's melting.
Sure is. And I don't know why you're trying to eat that during the recording. And you did a waffle cone too. It's dripping. Hello.
It's soggy now.
Here we are. So we've done 3 of these Dirty Harry movies. We are on the 4th. We both have not seen this movie until last night.
Uh-huh.
We put it in the player, and the music's like bow.
Welcome to the 80s. 1980. 3 to be exact.
1983, 10 years before a bright-eyed boy would enter the world. His name, Micah. Yeah, and it was kind of like, whoa, okay, this might be a wacky movie, but judging by that. I don't know what you thought about it, but I liked this one.
I liked it too. Oh, thank goodness. Because as we were watching, I was like, man, I hope Micah doesn't hate this. Not hate, but I hope Micah isn't as underwhelmed by this as we were with the last one, because I'm really digging this one.
Yeah, I dug this one. I'll get into why when we get there. But there's actually a lot of reasons why. But yeah, to kind of like remind you, the listener, because it's been a month of Harry, and it's all been pretty dirty.
It's been one hairy month.
And a dirty month. And the first movie's great.
Yeah.
Second movie is like not great, but the story's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't quite deliver, in my opinion.
Third movie.
Bad.
Just bad.
And then this one, I'm like, okay, I'm back on board. I'm into it, even though Clint's starting to look old in this movie. Mm-hmm. Not that people have to look young to be in movies. Actually, we're going to talk about that in a second. But let's do what I like to do before I eat, which is set the table.
Go ahead. And as you do it, I'm going to clean this water off of my drawing desk before it gets any closer to the art.
Oh, okay. So this movie is directed by Clint Eastwood, and he makes this movie in between Honky Tonk Man and Pale Rider. Having said that, and having seen Pale Rider...
what, you haven't seen Honky Tonk Man?
I have not seen Honky Tonk Man. But Sudden Impact and Pale Rider back-to-back, he must have had sexual assault on the mind, because that is like...
Oh, is the other one about that too?
Oh, wait, no, I'm thinking of High Plains Drifter. Actually, I don't remember. There's probably sexual assault in Pale Rider.
Okay.
Because a lot of Westerns have sexual assault.
Yeah.
But actually, I got it mixed up. The screenplay is by Joseph Stinson, who did, of course, City Heat.
Oh, duh.
And Stick.
Yeah.
And then we have the story by Earl E. Smith and Charles B. Pierce. And Charles B. Pierce is kind of interesting because he directed some cult hits, one of which is The Legend of Boggy Creek, which I thought, oh, that sounds dumb. But it's a faux documentary style film that's inspired by The Legend of Bigfoot.
Whoa, that sounds good. I want to watch that.
Yeah, and he followed that up with a bunch of inexpensive films filmed in the southern U.S., including The Town That Dreaded Sundown, based on the story of the Phantom Killer murders in Texarkana. Yeah, so
cool.
I thought that was kind of cool. The other guy didn't have a Wikipedia page, and I forgot to look up further, but last week the same thing happened, and the person only had the one credit. So I'm imagining it's a similar situation for Earl E. Smith.
They just went to his restaurant and gave it to the manager to give to Clint.
One of those guys only has one credit, and it was the enforcer.
You mean? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm saying that exact situation happened, where this guy heard about how the last movie got made.
No.
And just took his script.
Or are you joking?
I'm joking.
Oh my gosh, I can hardly see your face because it's covered in ice cream. That's called a callback.
Still slurping.
Okay, so the cinematography is by Bruce Surtees, who did Dirty Harry, so he's back. And then the music is by Lalo Schifrin, who is back. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the music, Jordan.
Interesting. Because when it started, it was like, yeah, tell me this is an 80s movie without telling me this is an 80s movie. And it's like, ugh, this is not a great start with the bass.
Yeah.
Real just dated slapping it.
Very.
And by the end, though, I didn't really care. There was that bass was kind of throughout, but it was more just the opening credit sequence that was really crazy.
Yeah.
But there were a couple parts where it was like the cool drums again in this movie.
But yeah, it was kind of interesting because the first two are very of a piece. Then the second one's more jazzy, but still similar. And then this one was like different kind of style at all.
It was like, this is a joke, but it was like borderline Seinfeld theme song.
Yeah. So, the movie comes out December 9th, 1983. I saw on Wikipedia that it was a $22 million budget, but I didn't confirm that because when I went to Box Office Mojo, it didn't have a budget. So I'm not positive about the budget. That sounds right, though. $67 million made. What happened is the two story by credits, Mr. Earl E. Smith and Charles B. Pierce, they were working on a screenplay for Sandra Locke, who is the...
Sandra?
I
think it's S-O-D-R-A. S-O-N.
Oh, I really? Let's see.
S-O-N-D-R-A.
Oh, Sandra. Okay. So they were working on a script for her, and that eventually became this movie.
How does that work?
Well, I actually...
Did she ask them?
Well, I don't know exactly how that worked.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. This is her last movie to have a theatrical release.
Whoa. She is not old in this movie.
No. But
so what happened?
I'm going to tell you a little bit about her because I found her pretty fascinating.
Okay.
But before I do, at this point in his career, Eastwood was receiving a salary that included 60% of all film profits,
wow.
leaving the other 40 for the studio. So we think that he probably earned around $30 million for this movie.
Yeah, man.
Sandra Locke. Jordan's laughing very hard. For you listeners, I really stumbled through, and for sake of clarity, I had to edit the last 2 minutes out. So that's why she's laughing. This is take 3 on trying to explain Sandra Locke. So she is an up-and-coming actress, and she is getting critical acclaim. People are enjoying her, and when she started, right off the bat, her husband and her, I think he was a fiance at the time, were like, hey, let's shave 6 years off your age just to be safe.
Wow.
And she kept that going her career. So
she was always 6 years older than what she reported?
Yes.
Okay.
So that I found interesting. And I also, this is skipping ahead quite a bit, but for reasons never made clear, her death was not publicly announced. And was only confirmed by vital statistics 6 weeks after she died of the age of 74, which was in 2018.
Okay.
So we have that. Then she is cast in The Outlaw Josie Wales.
Are you seeing this poster? This is a cool poster.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I have not seen it.
Yeah. I think that's my dad's favorite of all of his movies.
I just really love that poster.
Yeah, it's a great poster. So she gets cast in that movie.
Okay.
And her and Clint Eastwood start an electric, what do they call it, affair together.
Okay.
Now, she is in a marriage with someone that, I forgot the term, but it was called a marriage of convenience.
So they're just reaping reward, the benefits of being married, but they're not they're not their vows didn't mean anything.
Well,
they're swingers?
No, it's much more complicated than that.
Green card.
No,
Who is this guy?
Stop guessing. I'm about to say his name is Gordon Anderson, and he is gay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or was gay. I don't know if he's still alive.
What does it? I don't know if he's still gay.
No, I wasn't sure if he's alive or not. But but it sounds like in her later years, she did kind of speak of like, we did like love each other but like their relationship was never consummated.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
that's really interesting.
So
sorry, do you happen to know if he's like in the industry or anything?
He was a sculptor.
Oh, interesting.
Because I thought maybe it was like a Hollywood thing.
What's his name again?
Gordon Anderson. Gordon Anderson.
I just want to look him up.
Yeah. So, but while you're looking up, will you be able to hear what I say?
Yes.
Because often that's not the case.
Jeez, you're pissed today.
Am I pissed?
I don't know. Right now you are.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Keep going. I'm listening.
Okay. You know what it is? It's actually a me problem. It's just when people aren't looking, it just seems like they can't hear you. But that's part of what we have to do on this podcast. Should I edit all of that out?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So she's cast in Outlaw Josie Wales, and then she's in, I believe, 6 movies with Clint Eastwood.
Wow.
And Clint Eastwood, they have an affair, but Clint Eastwood is in an open marriage at this point.
Awesome.
And
I hope people can detect the tone of sarcasm in that.
And so but Clint Eastwood doesn't really like when she doesn't work on his sets.
Oh my god.
And with him. So and she does do some TV. She does a couple of movies during this period. But she's like in, I think, 6 Clint Eastwood movies.
So she's trapped.
But I mean, these are hits.
Yeah, they're hits, but she has no creative control over her own career. Not like many women did during that time, but even less so than usual.
Yeah, I think that's certainly one way to read it.
So,
and I would potentially read it that way.
Here's a question. That maybe you know the answer to. So if this movie, Sudden Impact, is her last theatrical release, did their relationship end by the time this movie came out? And like she couldn't get any other jobs because of this weird relationship?
That's what I thought. I looked very cursory, and it didn't seem like that.
Okay.
It just seemed like she went to do some directing, and then maybe her career just kind of petered out. She
is in stuff beyond this movie, very little.
Yeah, and not theatrical releases.
No.
So, yeah. And she's in the Every Which Way But Loose movie and Any Which Way You Can movie.
More reasons to watch it, I guess.
But yeah, that's all my notes for the movie.
Man, I wish you had more about that. Okay, this Every Which Way But Loose is a cool poster too.
Yeah, that's what you said last time.
I did.
Yeah.
It's like a romance poster, but instead of a woman
it's a
draped
monkey.
over him, it's
a monkey,
an orangutan.
So, what more questions do you have about this?
Well, I guess I am
Sandra?
just curious if, like the question I just asked, like why was this her last theatrical release? What happened to the relationship?
Okay, I'll try and find those, but you have to cover me.
So the other things that she's in, I mean, Micah mentioned she's in several Clint Eastwood movies, but she's also in a lot of TV episodes here and there, like Kung Fu, Barnaby Jones, an episode of Planet of the Apes. So a lot of stuff leading up to, I guess, Clint.
Mm-hmm. I do like this description on here. It says, in 1978, Locke and Eastwood appeared with an orangutan named Clyde in the year's 4th highest grossing film. Not like they're in this movie that has an orangutan.
No, they appeared with. Pat Hingle plays Chief Jennings. He is the commissioner in Batman. I thought he looked familiar.
Oh yeah, he's Gordon.
Yeah, he's Commissioner Gordon in Batman. He's also in The Quick and the Dead, Hang 'Em High, Batman and Robin. Same Commissioner Gordon. Talladega Nights. Wow. And a lot of stuff. And then Paul Drake plays Mick. He's like the bad guy at the end. He's also in Beverly Hills Cop. Oh, it just has a Hold Up Man #1. He's in Hardcastle and McCormick, Midnight Cabaret, Silk Stockings, and a lot of 90s and 80s shows. Audrey Neenan plays Ray Perkins. That's the bad lady. Bad guy.
Oh, yeah. Bad lady guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was so good in this movie.
Yeah.
She was
pretty nasty.
Too good.
Yeah.
She's also in Ghost Town, Somewhere in Time. The Departed.
Oh, I've been there.
Somewhere in Time?
Yeah.
I think we're somewhere in time right now.
Uh-huh.
April and Winter.
She's in The Departed?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Crashing, Divorce, Blue Blood, a lot of shows.
Oh, wow. So she's still working.
Yep.
Let me interrupt you.
Okay.
So in 1986, so in 85, Eastwood directed Locke in Amazing Stories, an episode of the show. In 86, she makes her directorial debut, produced by Eastwood. And she was asked why she hadn't been in his movies lately, and she said, "I wasn't right for the roles."
Says Clint.
That's what she said.
Says Clint.
Well, okay, yes. And then she directed another movie, which Siskel and Ebert gave 2 thumbs up, called Impulse. And then she had a long interruption in her career due to legal difficulties and health issues.
What are the legal difficulties?
Well, I can find that out too. But yes, so I'm going to go to personal life, and I'm going to find out.
Because the fact that she has a very interesting marriage, it's like, are those legal difficulties?
Yeah. So, okay, I'm just reading this verbatim, okay?
Yeah.
Eastwood and Locke were still cohabitating when, in the latter half of the 1980s, he secretly fathered another woman's 2 children, a fact that did not come to light for almost 20 years. Despite her affirmed ignorance, Locke sensed growing tension in the relationship around 1985, recollecting that, although I definitely still loved Clint, I didn't have much like him. I didn't very much like him. In retrospect, she gathered either he changed from white to black or I had been living with someone I didn't know. And then she confronted Eastwood over his passive-aggressive behavior, eliciting an estrangement between the two. Locke testified that after she and Eastwood made their final joint appearance on January 6th, a day which will live in infamy, they spent exactly 2 nights together without intimate contact.
She testified like their relationship was brought to court.
Well, it just says palimony suit. What's a palimony suit?
Well, I'll look that
up. We are gonna have to go down the rabbit hole. Matrimony.
Oh yeah, this is interesting. Compensation paid by one member of an unmarried couple to the other after separation.
Oh, okay. So
what a specific situation to be in.
Yeah.
So like they're together. She's married to this other guy, but she's basically with Clint. And
yeah,
yeah, he has an open marriage, but it sounds like they had a really serious relationship.
Yeah.
Although I can't imagine someone can actually have a serious relationship in that situation. But because of how serious it was, by the time they split up, it's as if they were divorcing.
Yeah.
And like had assets to divvy up.
Let me go further. Okay, so we're airing the dirty laundry on this episode because during their 14 years as de facto husband and wife, I think actually at this point she had divorced her husband.
Oh, okay.
I think. It's hard to learn about an entire person's life in 5 minutes, but Locke and Eastwood had lived in 7 homes and acquired 4. Locke sought half of Eastwood's earnings and an equal division of property, requesting title to the house in Bel Air and to the Gothic-style West Hollywood place. She also asked Judge whatever to bar Eastwood from the Bel Air house.
Whoa,
they battled in courts for 19 months,
wow.
And then she developed breast cancer.
Wow.
And then the breakup affected her social life. Her closest friends had been the wives of Eastwood's colleagues.
Yeah.
And so Locke's friendships with the women gradually faded as their husbands ghosted her. That makes me feel like,
so by the end of this, it's like, why would you want to stay in Hollywood? Like, stay in that profession?
Yeah, and even by just proxy, like, I'm sure that's hurting her auditions and roles and stuff like that.
Jeez.
And then there's a fraud suit between 1990 and 1993. Warner Brothers rejected more than 30 scripts that Locke pitched. And refused to let her direct any of their in-house projects. So she began to seek corroboration and came across incriminating printouts from WB's bookkeeping records. Okay, Locke contended that the money WB pretended they were paying her came from Eastwood's pocket and was laundered through the operating budget of Unforgiven. Okay,
What?
I'm keeping reading here. In 1985, she sued him again.
Wait, I'm sorry. Just to clarify, she thought she was getting money from Clint, but it was being laundered through the movie's production?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So, but I don't know if that's true yet. Hopefully this will tell us. In June 1995, she sued him again for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. According to Locke's attorney, Peggy Garrity, Eastwood committed the ultimate betrayal by arranging the bogus deals as a way to keep her out of work. Garrity added that Eastwood had held out the allegedly counterfeit deal like a dangled carrot to persuade Locke to drop the early palimony suit. Locke said that she was stunned and outraged at the way I've been tricked and cheated a second time. The case went to trial in 96. One juror disclosed that the panel sided with Locke by a 10-2 vote. Before any court decisions could be made, Locke settled the case with Eastwood for an undisclosed amount of money. The outcome, Locke said, sent a loud and clear message to Hollywood that people cannot get away with whatever they want just because they're powerful. According to Locke, in this business, people get so accustomed to being abused, they just accept the abuse and say, well, that's just the way it is. Well, it isn't. For his part, Eastwood waved the lawsuit off as a dime novel plot, continuing, it's all about money, about getting something for nothing. He accused Locke of using her cancer to gain the jury's sympathy. She plays the victim very well. Unfortunately, she had cancer, and so she plays that card. Locke brought a separate action against Warner Brothers for allegedly conspiring with Eastwood to sabotage her directorial career. As it happened with the previous lawsuit, this ended in an out-of-court settlement in 1999. By then, Locke had fired Garrity and hired another representative. The agreement with Warner Brothers, Locke said, was a happy ending. I feel elated. This has been the best day in a long, long time, she told reporters on courthouse steps. The case is used in some modern law school contract textbooks to illustrate the legal concept of good faith.
How many, huh?
Yeah.
That's wild.
I'm glad you pushed me on that to keep going because that's wild. And folks, I was reading from Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And that's not always reliable, but something like that, and there were so many citations that it's like, yeah, that's pretty much, you can rely on that.
Jeez, that's bonkers. I just had the image flash in my head, that famous image of Nicole Kidman walking out of just having divorced Tom Cruise.
She's like almost jumping in the air.
Oh my gosh, it is such, oh my gosh, yeah. That also made me think of you know how like with the Woody Allen Mia Farrow stuff, like he like kind of made sure that she couldn't work.
I didn't know that
because of everything that happened.
That makes sense.
And it like wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
So this is the last time they're working together.
Yeah.
In this degree. I guess.
Well, there's a couple years, like their relationship didn't end here. There's a couple of years beyond that.
Last movie.
Yeah.
So, it does make sense though, like kind of changing subjects because they totally had chemistry in this movie.
Yes.
In a way that, the other women that he's had in these movies, partially because they're so poorly written.
Yes.
He hasn't had chemistry, but there was like genuine chemistry between the two. So when I saw a picture of them together and then was like, wait, what? And started looking this up, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they have a rapport,
Yeah. A long one ahead of this movie.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
That is pretty fascinating.
Do I need to cover all the bad guys? Because that's pretty much our cast.
No, I think we're good, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Should we dive in?
Let's do it.
So the movie begins, and we talked about the music, but I will say when the music was playing and then it said music by Lalo Schifrin, you and I were both like, what?
Yeah.
We were very confused.
Yeah.
But then
a little apprehensive.
Yeah, I thought when I put in the DVD and the menu played and it had that music, I was like, oh, this is gonna be bad. Yeah. Like really bad.
Yeah. And my expectations have lowered with each movie because you had mentioned that the scores on them just progressively go down.
Yeah.
So it was probably for the best that I went in with lower expectations.
Yeah, because this one's definitely better than the last one.
This one is probably my second favorite one. So the story is just so much more like they know what's happening in the story.
Yeah. And I really think the first two as much as the movie, of course, relies on you being into Harry and like wanting to watch Harry, like they made compelling villain stories, and the third movie did not have a compelling villain story.
No, this one for me, besides the first movie, has the most compelling villains.
Very compelling.
Yeah.
And so this time it was like, okay, I'm like very curious where this is gonna go.
Yeah.
And I do think Sandra was great in it.
She was so good.
Really, really great.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next scene after the credits, there's a car parked, and there's a man and a woman getting down in a car, and then her hand goes to his crotch, and it was like, okay, and then she pulls out a gun, shoots his crotch, shoots his head, and walks away. I'm like, okay, this is interesting.
But they're really simmering with it because she gets out of the car, looks out at the bay before, and you think she's gonna throw the gun.
But she doesn't.
And
then she looks almost directly at the camera, kind of old Hollywood, like kind of thing. And the lenses are nice. And the movie looked a lot better.
This movie was shot probably the best out of I just really like how this movie was shot.
Yeah,
Clint
there's
was
something
not
like
sleepwalking through this movie, directing or acting.
No, there's something about the first movie that I kind of like, the kind of just setting up a camera and just letting it play out.
I do like that. It feels a little bit more documentary.
A little documentary, a little grittier. But this one was a little bit like, this is like a Hollywood light the scene a little interesting, and and the way she like almost looks directly in the camera. I was like, okay, this is cool.
So I feel like many, if not most of the shots in this movie, and I am not good at lens stuff besides your split diopter, but it seems like they were using like an ultra wide lens, but not in the conventional way that you would use it. Yeah.
So I think my understanding is they have a very wide lens, probably like maybe like a 70 millimeter lens or something like that. And then they're using it for close-ups, so it distorts pretty much anything that's not in focus.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can lead to like even the edges of the frame look blurry and strange.
I feel like there were also just a lot of split diopter shots in this movie.
Oh, I don't think I caught that.
I feel like I saw that almost foggy line in the middle of the screen.
Yeah.
A lot.
Love that.
Me too. Okay. So yeah. So that's our opening scene. And then we get to Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
Does he immediately go to the coffee shop? Is that our
No, this is where he goes to the courtroom. He goes to the courtroom first. So I'm going to look up his speech that he tells the guy when he's in the elevator.
Yeah, the dog poop one. Yeah. So he's goes into court. This judge is presiding. It's a murder trial. And well, it seems like it's almost like not even a grand jury, because it didn't seem like there was a jury there, but it's almost like the judge was deciding if this would go anywhere. Because she determined that there was not enough actual evidence to convict or even charge this person with murder.
Well, the evidence is inadmissible because
there was no search warrant.
Yeah, he got it. He got it through not the proper means.
Yeah, and he basically searched this guy without probable cause, even.
Which is so funny because Harry's sitting there and he's like acting so surprised, and I'm like, you should know this by now, dude. Like, you have to get your search warrants.
I like that the judge even threatens the prosecutor. That's like, I'm going to be talking to the district attorney about you, to the prosecutor. So it's like saying that it's affecting other people's jobs. I like how the prosecutor acts towards Harry too, where he's kind of saying what you're saying. It's like, you know how this works.
Yeah.
So this guy gets off on murder. It's a weird sentence. He's acquitted for murder, and him and his pals are just so smug about it, and are like he, and they're walking out of the courtroom. They all get into the same elevator,
and then they're like, hey, now you'll think twice about crossing me, right, Harry, or something like that. And then Harry grabs him in the elevator, pulls him to the side, and before I say this line, I just want to point out, remember when we started this whole thing, I talked about how my dad would imitate Clint Eastwood and do the Make My Day speech and all of that stuff. the make my day line, and then the do you feel lucky speech, and a man's got to know his limitations. We had him on. He did it, But how come he never did this and said, listen, punk, to me, you're nothing but dog shit, you understand? And a lot of things can happen to dog shit. It can be scraped up with a shovel off the ground. It can dry up and blow away in the wind, or it can be stepped on and squashed. How come you never said that to me, Dad?
There's so many great one-liners in this movie.
Well, okay, so this was another thing that I really liked about the movie, and I actually saw Roger Ebert said something like this. Like, he put it in a way that made sense, where it's like, it's kind of like a Dirty Harry movie without all the boring stuff.
Sure.
So he was like, I really liked it. They took out like all the stuff that is not fun to watch.
They trimmed the fat.
But the one-liners are back, and they're better than ever. And then the action's back, and it's probably better than it's been since the first movie.
The action?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all just a little like, occasionally you get a movie where someone returns to a property and they go, okay, we know what people liked about this. And you watch it and you're like this movie, you're like, yeah, you did know what we liked about it. And you emphasize those things. More often than not, it's usually that people being like, we know what you like. And then you watch a movie and you're like, those aren't the things that people liked about this.
Yeah.
But for this, they did nail that.
Yeah.
So then he goes to the coffee shop.
Goes to the coffee shop. This is a great scene.
Yeah.
He goes here every day. So he doesn't even like look at it's he walks in and the lady knows to get him coffee. So he buys a paper, walks in, and is just reading the paper as the woman is like staring at him, pouring coffee, puts the coffee on the counter, and then it starts dumping sugar, but is dumping sugar for like 30 seconds into his coffee, like staring at him, like screaming, "Look at me," without screaming.
Did you figure out what was going on?
I did, because when she started pouring sugar, remember I was like, "Is this a joke?" But then she kept doing it, and she looked very concerned. Yeah. So I knew, and then it kept cutting to the bad guys.
Yeah.
So,
a naive Micah, I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, man, everyone's
this guy likes a lot of sugar in his coffee.
They're just thinking this is funny, and everyone's noticing because she's pouring the sugar for so long.
Oh, Micah, come on!
I'm smarter than that.
You are smarter than that.
Baby brain.
Maybe you're going through a dumb phase. Because I'm saying that because I miss a lot of things in movies too.
You certainly do.
So maybe we just can never be on the same page.
Yes.
And that's actually how our marriage has lasted all these years.
Oh.
Because we make up for the other.
Oh.
Anyway, he gets his coffee, walks out, drinks it, spits it out because it's disgusting, and turns around and is like, "What?" He actually says, "What?" And sees that the open sign has been flipped closed.
Uh-huh.
And all the bad guys in there are like, okay, it's a stick up. So they start harassing people, robbing the place, and then Clint comes in through the back, silent like.
Yeah.
And then they start shooting it up. But I loved all that where he's like, I've been coming here every day for 10 years, and whatever that lady's name is, like,
she always pours me my coffee.
My large black coffee, no sugar.
Yep.
And he's like, and I just thought I'd come back and complain about the service.
Yeah.
And then he is, it's a shootout because it's Dirty Harry. He's just shooting anybody. Well, he's shooting the bad guys, but it doesn't matter if there's a hostage nearby or not.
Right,
he's shooting them. And then we get to the last guy who is holding the waitress hostage. And Harry says, "Go ahead, make my day."
Yes.
So didn't know it came from this movie.
Right. Yeah. And I would always hear, I think my dad would say, "Go ahead, punk, make my day."
I think I would too.
I think people have like conflated that.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And this is when you and I mentioned, like, we thought that he like said all these lines like in all the movies. Like it was like his catchphrase, but these have been spread out.
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
To have that many catchphrases throughout a series.
Because this is, I saw on Wikipedia, this is like the number 5 or number 6 like movie line.
Wow. It is truly just so wonderful.
Yeah. On AFI anyway.
Yeah.
A little burp in the mic for you folks at home, you ASMR heads at home.
So he saves the day, but classic Dirty Harry style causes I heard said Dirty Harry style, and I thought I said Harry Styles. He causes a bunch of damage, so he gets in trouble. Yeah. Of course, by the chief and the lieutenant and blah, 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 who are grilling him as per usual.
Yeah.
We've seen it
You're
before.
off homicide.
Mm-hmm. They actually make him take a vacation.
But so while he's doing his vacation, he goes to a crime boss, and I like this a lot. He goes to this crime boss's
granddaughter's wedding.
And then he goes up to him and he says, "Hey, there was this woman who was killed, and she had secrets about a crime boss, and she said all this stuff." And the guy's going, "Why would you tell me this? I don't know what you're talking about." And the implication is that the crime boss was sleeping with this woman, and he was telling her the secrets.
She was his favorite, so he told her all these things.
Yeah, and so then he pulls out of his, because the guy's like, "Yeah, it doesn't matter. Sounds like she's dead. Who cares? But I don't even know what you're talking about." And then he pulls out these pages and he goes, "Maybe she was smart enough to write it down. And maybe she was smart enough to give that stuff to a detective." Yada, yada, yada. The guy has a heart attack. I believe he dies.
Does he die?
Well, maybe they don't ever say.
Oh, okay.
And then he walks over to the maitre d', hands her the pages, and they're blank.
Uh-huh.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's classic. Yeah. That's a dad movie.
And I like when he shows up and the host is like, "Do you have a reservation?" Which I was confused by this, but I don't need to get nitpicky about it. But she's like, do you have reservations? And these two henchmen dudes show up right away to prevent him from coming in. And he's like, "Yeah, do you know the emergency number for the hospital?" Yeah. "I'm going to need you to call it now because a couple of people are going to be like black and blue in 2 seconds or something." Just more great one-liners.
Yeah. But then he's sent on like a real vacation, right?
Well,
or not really.
So this happens and he gets in trouble again. This is at this point they might be forcing him to take a vacation. So then the next scene or two or whatever, he is seen like leaving a building, and the mob dudes like have tracked him down and they're shooting him up.
Right.
And so he they chase him. He
with the Molotov cocktail.
No, that's not the henchmen. Don't do that. The mob guys don't do that. That's the kids that do that to him. So basically, in this first act, they're just showing that they're always commenting on how death follows Harry.
Yeah.
But it's funny because in these situations, I mean, maybe some of these, of course, ways that he did it as a police officer is not above board. It's not by the book. But his claim for the mob boss is like, "We've been investigating this for like months and months and months. I'm just trying to like get it out of the stalling phase."
Yeah, right.
And then the cafe shoot up. It's like, well, that one's pretty like, maybe we could have done it differently.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Well, and then the mob one, they do say like, "We had surveillance on this. We were building a case," and he's like, "Nah,
not good enough. Was taking too long." But what they're showing basically in this first act is that yes, death follows him, but all these people are tracking him down because everyone, like all the bad guys in San Francisco at this point, have a personal vendetta against him.
Yeah.
And them even trying to kill him results in their own deaths.
Right.
So he has the shootout with the mob dudes, and they all die.
Right.
And then soon after that, those kids from the first scene of the movie in the courtroom track him down and start beating up his car as they're driving. It's a pretty crazy scene. And they throw Molotov cocktails in his car. He continues driving the car.
Yeah.
He goes to a pier. I thought he was just going to drive his car into the water to get it to stop being on fire. But he stops the car, reaches into his car to pick up one of the cocktails that did not explode and throws it at the kids.
Yeah.
To which they go into the water and then die.
In classic Dirty Harry form, if you drive into water, you die.
You're dead.
Even if it's just a 20-foot drop.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, the killer, the girl, she goes and visits her catatonic sister at a place, and she says, I found one of the old men, and I killed him. And they
still don't explain why.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Because I mean, clearly my mind was not working at full capacity because I was like, I have no idea what's going on right now.
You couldn't even guess why she would want to kill a man?
Well, I didn't know if it was like a psychopathic thing. Or like where she's just
the way she was talking, though, was that they definitely had a history with this man.
I just don't think my brain was functioning at full capacity.
I don't think so either.
And then Harry goes to a fire, like he goes out into the woods and fires his gun. And that's when you think he's being stalked by the actor who plays Mustafa and
the pimp in the second movie.
And then the guy who he says, "How many shots do I have?" In
but
the
now
first
he's a new
one.
character. I think he's a
I think he's his partner.
He's an inspector or
but
something.
I'm not sure.
But so by this time Harry knows about the murder that we saw in our opening scene with the lady. Like he's been on the crime scene and stuff.
Yeah.
So he is investigating it, kind of whether or not he's on homicide. And this guy comes where he's out in the woods shooting, where we get to see this really cool new gun that Harry has.
Yeah.
And the guy says, "I think I can help you, push you in the right direction of this investigation, but you got to go on a trip."
Yeah. And then he gets set on vacation after the Molotov cocktail incident.
But his vacation is technically work.
Well, yeah. It's down to San Paulo.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's been another murder over there. You can check it out.
Yeah. Same way, shot in the crotch, shot in the head.
Or is it? I think he just happens to be there and
Yeah, that might not have happened yet.
Yeah, that hasn't happened yet. But
the guy that was killed, the first guy that was killed was from there. So
sure.
that's why he was told
that's
to
why
go
he's
there.
Yeah. And then the woman, she is gonna paint the carousel. That's how she makes money. She's an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's gonna paint the carousel, and the person who's showing it to her, it's like a beaten down carousel. She's like, "I'm gonna make old things good again." And you're like, "Oh, okay, creepy." And then she has a flashback where she is
very cool flashback.
Okay, go take
what
it.
I mean by is she's on the boardwalk. She goes down to the beach and is looking under the pier.
Yeah.
And it gets a really big close up on her eyes.
Yeah.
And then her eyes are like the sky for a while.
Yeah.
As we're kind of seeing carnival or pier rides and stuff. Then the flashback's not great because it's sad.
Yeah.
But we get her backstory on what her motivations. So years ago she was at a party. Although they still didn't quite explain everything yet.
Yeah.
But her and her sister were at this party under the pier with all these people drinking and all this stuff. They just did not look like they wanted to be there at all.
Yeah.
But her and her sister were sexually assaulted by everybody.
Yeah.
So it explains her sister's state, catatonic state.
Yeah, and it's kind of it is kind of a brutal scene.
It is.
It went on longer than I was expecting. I don't know. I don't feel like it was I don't think this should be in the movie or anything like that to me. Because it really provides great motivation and it's great. It's a well put together story, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
And a lot of times this sort of storyline can be a crutch, especially when male writers are writing it. It just didn't feel like that to me in this way. It felt, I think because her performance is so good and she actually has some agency and some interesting things in the movie, it didn't feel like that to me.
I agree.
But so now she's gonna you figure out she's gonna pick off all of these guys.
Uh-huh.
And
the lady.
Yeah. And one thing, I was being sharp-minded here, okay. When I saw this scene, I was like, okay, I know how this movie's gonna end. And it's gonna end with, and I was a little bit wrong, but not really. It's gonna end with her and Harry down to the last guy, and he's gonna be like, go ahead and shoot him.
Oh, okay.
Which that's not what happened. He kills the guy, but then he doesn't turn her in and says, I'm pretty sure that guy killed all those other guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still smart, friends.
Okay.
And, part of it is this weather. July 21st is such a hot
now
day.
Your ice cream's melting.
It's weird that yours was melting and mine wasn't for most of this.
But I finished mine.
I haven't started mine.
Start eating fast.
Yeah, you keep looking down like I actually have ice cream.
Oh, I kind of want some.
So now we have to talk about it, Jordan.
What?
We have to talk about the elephant in the room, if you will, on this movie. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I don't remember.
There is
the dog?
An animal in this movie. It is a bulldog, English. And
about the ugliest dog you could ever see.
They somehow found the ugliest dog I've ever seen.
And they actually found the two ugliest dogs in the world because one was obviously female,
and
obviously
one was
had
obviously
just
male.
Given birth, or was about to, and the other one was obviously male.
With a ginormous hog.
Giant, like the biggest I've ever seen on a dog. And then with the female, it was like, she's about ready to pop, I think.
Yeah. And the male, he stuck out his back leg straight when he would pee, and he pees twice in the movie.
It was just like not even white; it was basically pink.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
It was a gross.
And I like English bulldogs.
Oh, it was disgusting. And his reaction, so he checks.
Although I would never want one because they have snot problems and they have snot all over their face.
That kind of dog,
which is nasty.
No.
Sorry, Jack O'Hara.
They So okay. So he checks into his motel and like he enters his room and immediately like falls over and lets out like a and it's what's going on? And then they cut to the dog and it's like, oh, appropriate reaction.
Who gave him this dog?
Horace, his friend
from the woods.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I couldn't figure it out the entire movie.
Yeah, it was weird.
It was weird, and I just thought like
I like how he calls the dog a meathead though.
Yeah. So this was after Any Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can. And I think Clint Eastwood's
an animal lover.
He must have been like, let's get another animal in there. But yeah, so he takes a jog with this dog. Which I'm like, if you're taking a jog with this dog, you're going around the block.
You're trying to kill the dog.
Yeah. You're not, this is not going to be a dog that keeps up with you. And it also like makes it look like Clint Eastwood's maybe even older because the dog is keeping up with him.
That's funny.
They run across the killer.
And cause her to fall off her bike.
Which was pretty goofy. That was pretty goofy.
Oh, yeah. But that's their meet cute.
Yeah, the dog farts.
Oh my gosh, the dog farted.
And it almost felt like that was just captured on set.
I believe it.
This dog's a truly wretched animal.
Just a little window into our lives. As everyone knows, dog farts are like the smelliest, worst farts in the world.
Yeah.
It sucks. When we got Gilmore, I have never audibly heard a dog fart as often as Gilmore farts.
Yeah. Daily. At least daily. Although it seems like a little less more recently.
Yeah. But I mean like loud farts. Like human farts.
Yeah. Not loud like when you get a loud fart, but like loud enough that it's like, bah.
Well, sometimes they sound like straight up human farts.
Yeah. Sometimes there's been a little confusion between each other that we've had to kind of argue about.
Who farted?
But they don't really smell.
Not usually.
Yeah.
When they're silent but deadly.
Yeah.
That's when they smell.
But it's just hilarious because with humans, there's so much shame involved with farting.
Sometimes the Gilmore will fart and he'll look behind him like, did I do that?
But I also love when he's just like laying there and he just farts and it's just like there's no change in his tempo. You know what I mean? Because like with a human, it's like, oh, did anyone hear that? Or you make a big show out of it or something like that. Yeah.
Anyway,
so then Then Clint goes to this bar. He meets the bad girl.
Yes.
From the attack.
And I think two of those dudes are bad guys. With them too. But yeah.
He kicks her in the ass.
He does kick her in the ass. And she is a train wreck of a person.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And like we've said, her performance is just incredible.
Yeah.
She's so unlikable. But it's like she's that kind of like classic person that is just mean and gross and thinks that everything is about them and everything's owed to them.
Yeah.
And she's like queen of this castle of this town.
Yeah.
In the seedier parts.
Yeah.
So it's like when she goes to Clint and is like, offering herself to him.
Right.
He's like, I don't think so. And she immediately doesn't understand and is pissed about it.
Right.
But yeah, he tells them that guy from the beginning of the movie is killed. To which everyone starts laughing.
Yeah.
And he leaves, right?
Yep. And then they're gonna go. She's gonna go through and like warn the other attackers.
Yeah. And by this point, I think.
We can call them rapists. Attackers almost makes it feel like it's not that bad. These are bad guys.
They're very bad, no good.
Yeah.
By this point, Harry had been to the police precinct or station and like has been set up there, and went into the chief's office and noticed one of the pictures on the wall like has all these people in it, and one of them, I think he recognizes one of them as the victim.
Yeah,
the first victim. So I think he becomes interested in who are these other people in the picture.
The chief's son is in the picture, who we've seen as one of the attackers. I think he asked the guy, and the guy's like, "Oh, that picture of his son and his friends, or something like that."
Oh, I didn't know who was his son until it was like shown.
No,
at the end of the movie.
So who's smart now, huh?
Oh, brother! But so being a good detective that he is like, who are these other people in the picture?
Yeah. Then it cuts to this guy, and this is a funny scene as well. He's fishing on the beach, and he's like 50 yards away from the shore.
I don't know why he's so far away. It's not about to be high tide or anything.
We were like audibly laughing.
Yeah.
And my phone auto-corrected it to 59 yards from the shore, so I think he might have been about 59
or 69 yards.
Oh.
I don't know. Bad joke.
A girl comes up, shoots him in the crotch, kills him.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's been 2 murders.
Uh-huh.
And so Callahan, he investigates. They're all investigating. You know, you have the classic like police forces clashing.
But like the chief,
don't tell me big city guy. The chief is
involved, which is just unusual. That like how like he's inserting himself into these situations, which piques his suspicions even more.
Yeah. And then Callahan comes home, and a guy tries to kill him, but Meathead thwarts the killing.
Yeah, it's one of those mob dudes.
Yeah.
So even though he gets out of Dodge, he still can't escape. People are just trying to kill him all the time, and he gets in trouble even for that.
Yeah.
And he gets in trouble with this police force because the day that he arrived, he drove through the town chasing a guy who was robbing a place.
Oh, that's right. I didn't.
So
he
can't not be attracted, or things attract to him that are bad things.
Maybe Dirty Harry is not just, a parable about the police force. Maybe he is like a Greek god of mischief or something. And everywhere he goes, mischief and chaos is attracted to him.
I like to think of him as Pigpen. He's Dirty Harry, so he's dirty.
Yeah.
So if we were to illustrate him,
well, he does have clouds of dust in the movie.
Yeah, so he would be Pigpen, and all of the dirt flying around him constantly is all of the crime, and he can never get rid of it.
Hey, that works better than my stupid Greek one. The Greek joke I was trying to make. Yeah. So then we get really introduced to like the real bad guy, who's like the worst of the worst, and he's scummy. He's
icky. So he gets a phone call from the lady.
And he's not fun scum. He's not like Robert Pattinson in Good Times. No. Scum bum. He's like scum.
And he gets a call from the lady warning him of...
Actually, Pattinson's kind of gross in that movie. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, let me just try to say what I'm trying to say.
Let me do one more thing.
about what's happening. Yeah. So he decides to come back to town and wait for it to happen. That's his plan.
Yeah.
To then get rid of this killer.
Yeah. And then eventually.
So at one point too, the lady goes to another dude who was involved in this terrible night.
Yeah.
Who this guy now like works at a department store or like
life put together.
Businessman, well-to-do. And their interaction is just very like also icky.
Yeah.
And
he's kind of like, I was a kid, like I've moved past it. Mm-hmm. It was bad. I'm out. I don't care if other people die. Leave me out of this. Go away.
And she's just reminding him that he is not okay.
Clock's ticking.
Yeah. So then I'm just going to skip to his scene. So,
yeah. This scene I thought was great.
I thought so too. So he is in his garage. Looks like he's getting a gun out. Like he is preparing.
Yeah.
But
this was like, but when he starts pleading with her.
Yeah.
Because,
I was going to get there.
Okay, go ahead.
So he's in his garage, and she shows up unannounced, closes his garage door, and is holding a gun at him, pointing a gun at him. And yeah, he goes through all of the like absolute biggest cliches of justifying his actions.
I was young. They made me to do it.
Yeah, I was drunk. I didn't even know what I was doing.
I didn't even like it. he says it wasn't. Could it have been like that bad? Is it bad enough to kill me?
Yeah.
And this I thought was pretty powerful and kind of, I thought, pretty forward for a movie in the 80s.
Yeah.
Because this seems like a message, like it reminded me of Promising Young Woman, which came out a couple of years ago. Which, like, the whole movie's basically discussing this idea of men doing, like, raping someone or something like that, getting away with it in college, and then it's like the like Kavanaugh stuff.
They're allowed to move on.
Yeah, it's like, well, you can be a senator now as long as we can, like, pretty much keep this stuff at bay or whatever, Supreme Court or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's not that bad as long as there's not, like, clues that connect you to the crime. I don't agree with that. I'm vehemently opposed to that. But it's, men have gotten away with that kind of thing since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And so for a movie in the 80s to comment on that and say he is wrong and he doesn't get excused by his age, being drunk, or any of that, I mean, maybe it's not the most subtle thing in the world, but I felt like this is actually kind of progressive, like, for the time to be, like, saying this message, I thought.
Yeah.
Now, they're portrayed as pretty bad. Like, nobody's watching this movie, like, siding with them.
Yeah.
But the fact that they brought up those excuses, I thought, like, that's kind of nuanced.
Yeah.
I don't know. What did you think?
No, I think I agree. I wonder if that has been, like, shown in a movie that way yet or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And especially with the girl getting revenge, I think, like, in other movies like this, in this time period, you're going to have, like, the guy come back and get revenge for the girl.
Okay.
When
did I Spit on Your Grave come out?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I think I've heard the title, but haven't seen it and don't know anything about it.
Big revenge movie.
Have you seen it?
No.
Jordan.
And it's been remade.
It's been remade.
1978.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I could watch this movie.
So what's the plot?
An aspiring writer is repeatedly gang raped, humiliated, and left for dead by 4 men she systematically hunts down to seek revenge. And that's 1978.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, though. I don't know how this movie handles it.
Yeah.
And then also the Wes Craven movie.
Last House on the Left.
Last House on the Left is also a sexual assault and, like, revenge movie. I have not seen the Wes Craven one. I saw the remake, and I can't even imagine watching the original. I can't imagine watching this movie because I don't want to go through that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. But so it's like I don't know how those movies handle it though. What we're talking about in this movie.
Yeah. So maybe my point about it being unique during this time frame might be incorrect, but I still found it to be like I guess sadly enough, it felt like the message was still prescient today.
Yeah.
Man, I'm hitting this so hard with my peas that it's making my pop filter bounce a bunch.
We'll stop doing that.
Sorry, listeners.
So she kills him. His pleading did not work.
No.
As it shouldn't have, because none of it matters. So she kills him. It's her next. That claims her next victim.
Yeah.
And then do we get to the night? Like, she goes to the next house. I know I'm skipping.
Well,
stuff,
before that, her and Harry have a beer together. And sparks kind of fly. You said this could have been filmed more interestingly.
Oh, that scene when they're like at a restaurant outside, and it was just one line, cut to the other person, one line, cut to the other person. I think you just could have done it in a more interesting way with a scene where I'm looking at it, I'm like imagining what it looks like on a shooting script.
Yeah.
And it just is like pages, because it's a kind of a long conversation.
Yeah.
It's just pages and pages and pages. I just think there could have been a better way to do it.
And also, yeah.
But they kind of get to know each other. Yeah.
I think they sleep together after that
Not
scene.
this one. No.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly when, but there's another time when they're at the beach together and they have a beer. And he drives her home.
Yeah.
She asks if he wants something stronger than beer. Before this, she had just killed the lady. And smashes the mirror in that house.
Yep.
And before she meets up at the beach with Harry, she smashes the mirror in her house.
Yep.
And throughout the movie, she's painting this self-portrait that is very haunting.
Yeah, so this is something we've talked about many times on the podcast, but when like you're watching a movie and there's art or a musician or whatever, and especially when an art critic or something is like, "Oh, this is terrible," and you look at it and you're like, "Is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it looks good to me," or whatever. And in this one, there's someone who's like, "Man, your art has such like distress in it, but you're so kind. It's weird." And when I saw her art, I was like, "Oh, they actually pulled it off."
I thought the same thing.
Because I was like, "This does look like a tortured soul created this art."
Yeah.
So I thought they actually pulled off that. That's such a hard detail to pull off and stuff, and they did pull it off in this one.
Yeah.
And so he's starting to see the broken mirrors in both places. He's starting to make a connection.
Doesn't stop him from sleeping with her.
I thought he sees the mirror after they sleep together.
No.
Oh, okay. But he's like, I don't know. And then she goes to the chief of police to get the son and kill the son.
So that's when we find out that the son is like seems to be catatonic as well now.
Yeah.
So that night that everything happened, the son participated. But his father is explaining for the son because the son cannot communicate anymore.
Yeah.
Like it ruined him.
He attempted suicide.
Because of it. And he's basically dead. I think doesn't he say something like, "I almost wish I had let him go through,
I
like
don't
punish
remember
himself."
him saying that.
I don't know what he says. Something that's like, "Oof, that's."
Or
sad.
maybe I should have, but I think he meant that more from a justice standpoint.
That's what I mean, like so that he can release his son of this, like supreme guilt. So she's going to kill him, but she can't.
Yeah,
she can't kill this one.
And this is interesting because now you see why the chief has been a little dodgy about everything.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. It's a pretty interesting gray area because she is just killing. Her plan is to kill everyone that was involved. And we've seen through everyone that everyone has moved on from that night. And it begs to reason, how many more nights have these people had like that?
Yeah.
Where they're just continuing this.
Yeah.
But when we see the son, it's like the first time she's seeing one of those people who couldn't move on from it.
Yeah.
And it did ruin his life.
And it does remind her of her sister.
And it reminds her of her sister. But makes me wonder if she's thinking like, I think he has been punished. Me shooting him is not going to punish him further.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then final showdown, kind of?
So the bad guys, the bad guy, Big Daddy.
yeah.
Shows up with his friends, kills the chief, kidnaps her, takes her back to the pier, and they're going to recreate that night.
Yeah.
And she fights back a lot, and they really beat her up, man.
Yeah.
Harry shows up eventually. And before that, there's a really cool scene on the carousel where she's like hiding from them as it's running.
And it does this long shot on a unicorn horn. And I was kind of like, interesting. I mean, it's nice, but it's like the action left the shot and it stayed there for like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just like weird.
Yeah, almost like, I don't know, foreshadowing.
Did you think that when you saw it?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
But that's what it was.
I'm like, if you thought that, that's crazy.
I didn't.
I'm not that dumb.
But Harry shows up, is chasing the guy. The guy has the girl. Then Harry gets him, kills him. His death is pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Falls off the roller coaster,
crashes through a window,
glass ceiling, and lands on the unicorn horn.
Yeah.
And then, everything's seemingly over. Well, also Harry gets to use that cool new Magnum gun. But it's like, okay, you know what I've been doing now. Like she knows that he knows. And that's when she's like, so what are you going to read me my rights? And and she kind of gives a little speech of like, just like why she did everything.
Yeah.
Because justice was never served to her and her sister. So she took it upon herself to seek justice for herself and her sister. And, that's when you mentioned that her gun that she'd been using the whole time was found on the dude.
Yeah, because he grabbed it from her.
Yeah, and Harry, tells the guy like, "Oh, that's the murder weapon. He must have been murdering all those people."
He's
and
like,
lets
check
her
the
off.
ballistics. I bet that'll match up.
Yeah,
and then it just goes to an aerial shot. Movie's over. So, that's this was truly the movie that I would say Dirty Harry uses his magnum for force, and he then enforces this sudden impact with this guy.
Wow. Stretch.
So we did it.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to tell you what we're covering next, Jordan?
If you want to.
It's up to you.
Don't we usually do it the second to last?
We do.
Then you better tell it.
Okay, so for the listener, I'm going to do a plug, and then you're going to find out what our next series is. So go to patreon.com/MICAHMCCAW, and you're going to sign up for any tier, but you're probably going to want to sign up for, well, actually, they all have great benefits. So do that, sign up. The lowest tier is less than 1 cup of coffee, and you get bonus episodes and bonus music and bonus videos and the Seance concert film, all that fun stuff. Also, something else you're going to want to do, because we're recording so far in advance, but it's not too late. You are going to want to go to jordanmarieMcCawart.bigcartel.com.
Yeah.
Is that the correct URL?
Yep.
And you're going to want to get her Ghost zine, because it's freaking cool. Go ahead.
My second coloring book is out by now.
Oh, yeah. So you could
we're recording this in July.
Yeah. So get the coloring book and get the zine. If you didn't get the How to Befriend the Monster Under Your Bed zine, you'll want that too. You can get both for just $15, or you can get one for $10.
Mm-hmm.
They're really cool.
They were fun to make.
Yeah.
And they're both essential guides.
And basically, it's the kind of thing that it should be like 1 million people should have bought it by now. That's how cool it is. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. You're a great artist. Now, the series. So here's the other thing for the listener. We've been planning out our maternity leave, and I love making the calendar. It is like such a joy. It's maybe my favorite part about the podcast is just creating the calendar and moving dates around. And so
he's like Tom Cruise in Minority Report.
Yeah, I have the gloves on and everything, and I'm like moving things around. So I came up with the scheduling all the way to the end of our maternity leave, which is September, end of September. And I chose several series, and Jordan is not aware of what these series are going to be.
In some ways, that is awesome that I don't have to decide. In other ways, that's concerning.
Yeah, but I don't think you're going to be concerned, Jordan, because in 2 weeks, next week we're doing The Deadpool, which is the last Dirty Harry movie. But then after that, we will be doing the first in a trilogy, and that trilogy is, you have any guesses?
No.
It is Pitch Perfect.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
What's your reaction to that?
I don't really care to watch them anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, I thought...
Love that it's a trilogy, though.
I thought that there'd be a different reaction to that.
You thought I'd be really excited?
I thought you'd be like,
you know how I feel about acapella?
I thought you would be excited about like a totally wildly different series that is not a superhero series or an action series.
Don't love acapella, so I'm glad there's only 3 of them.
Yeah, so that is what we're covering. I'm
so sorry for this reaction.
Yeah, what a bummer. And now we have 2 more series for you to react to.
Uh-oh.
So the one, here's what I'll say for the listener.
When did they make a 3rd one?
A little bit ago.
Oh.
And apparently the 3rd movie turns into a spy movie like halfway through.
I've heard that. Yeah,
which seems hilarious.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to cover it. But then, and listeners, guess away if you want. Go to our Facebook, sign up to our Facebook and guess away, or follow on Twitter and guess away. We're going to do another trilogy after that.
Okay.
Which I think you were going to be like, oh, finally. I think you're going to be stoked about that. And then after that, we're going to do another trilogy, and I think you're going to say, I've never heard of this. I don't know what this is.
Awesome.
And I think our entire audience is not going to know what it is.
Perfect.
Not to belittle everybody, but I just think it's not very well known.
Well, you've really established how smart you are in this episode.
Yeah, I'm not smart. See you next week.